Good morning, people. Thank you for sticking with the conversation here. Today, I want to talk about an issue that is personal to me, um, but I'm certainly not the only person who has confronted this particular difficulty. But there is a real difficulty out there that one does encounter inevitably if one embraces these kinds of countercultural forms of living, such as sailboat cruising, that often doesn't get a lot of discussion. Okay, but I mean, it's something that we should discuss because it'll come and it'll hit you pretty hard if you're successful. So there's a catch-22 there. And being aware of this particular problem will go a long way to having you prepared for the inevitability of when this problem arises. And the problem is simply this. If you embark on, in an authentic manner, a journey of trying to live in a manner that is aligned with your dreams and your values, say, on your sailboat, a lifestyle of harmonious existence with other people in the natural environment as much as you're able. One where your individual investments and your skill and your level of autonomy and your personal resilience, all of these things matter to you a great deal in real time every day. They are not virtue signals, they are inherent parts of your lifestyle. You are required to be alert, aware, intelligent, eager to learn, eager to expand your skill set, unwilling to lie to yourself about things that exist in the real world, not only because it's become a habit, but also because you have gained the ability to confront many of the issues that you might have seen as scary or frightening or such before. That fear alone might have kept you from being honest. Eventually you will get to the point in which you will have achieved this and you will feel uniquely empowered and autonomous and courageous and independent. And you will no longer relate to the choices the lion's share of humanity makes. And this is a common state of circumstances that people who live this way will find themselves in. And it's not something that should be at all discounted. I was in some port on the California coast years ago, and I don't remember where exactly. This is quite a while ago. And I went up to the marina bar after everything was all made fast there on the dock, and there happened to be an older woman in there that had seen the boat come in, and she was curious about it. And in talking to her, I discovered that she was quite the sailor herself. She had come from a family that had done this a lot. I think she would have been a little girl probably in the 40s and 50s, and basically spent her entire youth and young adulthood on her dad's ocean sailing yacht, and she'd been around the world a couple of times. And she told me a story about her being, I don't know, quite young, maybe 10 or 12, and being on board the boat, underway to, I believe, Tonga, someplace in the Central Pacific, and pretty mild conditions. But nonetheless, her dad came to her as this really young girl and told her that this night would be the first night. It would be her job to stay awake and to watch for hazards while the rest of the family slept. And that was a big deal because she'd never done it before, but her dad told her that she was ready to do this and that he trusted her, and that the life and welfare of her family was her responsibility that night. And if anything went amiss, she could wake everybody else up, but it was her job to keep her eyes open and make sure everything was okay. Obviously not a massive task, but one that is critical and important, and the failure to perform would have consequences that would be completely devastating. And it's a kind of job that might not be that kind of a big deal, but is something that's absolutely essential, and it really does matter. And she relayed to me the memory of that first night of keeping watch on the boat, and what a big deal it was for her, and how she felt that it had forever changed her as a person and made relating to other people who have never done anything meaningfully important in their entire life, which is most people, just impossible, because there was a certain conscious awareness of one's role, one's value, the part one plays in the life process that was awakened through that, which she could see was not awakened in most of her peers. And it simply made relating to her sleeping peers, well, frankly, impossible. And while this problem that stems from choosing to live in a first-person relational dialogue with life, the choice to do that has always made for a sense of alienation. In a world that is increasingly governed by the abstract and alienation and lack of connection with reality life, the natural world, or even each other, with increasing dominance of social media and now super intelligent AI, well, it won't be better, let's say. In fact, I would suggest that if having that first person, authentic dialogue, that dialogos with life is important to you, it will not be that much further in the future that one will be forced to make a hard, concrete decision about very important boundaries concerning how much of that you're actually going to allow into your life and how much of that you are going to forever refuse. And there will be tremendous consequences for that choice, I don't doubt, because of the ubiquitous level of the pressure these influences have in our lives to make us choose choices that are not in our interests, but are the interests of predatory interests solely. It'll be essential to make that choice. And depending on one's current state of autonomy, courage, and actionability, all relative things, you might be able to ride the pony before it gets that serious longer. But once one comes to understand that the choice to deliberately step away from those insane cultural forces that are becoming more and more powerful and omnipresent, well, that choice becomes inevitable, and knowing that provides urgency to preparing ourselves to confront that event. So I would suggest that it is worth contemplating from the start, again to refer back to our basic 3-year plan model, That needs to be a model that takes into account what the future actually looks like, not what you wish it to be. If we actually go so far as to model that we succeed, it's very likely that at the end of those 3 years, our values, our attitude, our character, our skill set, as such, 3 years from this moment, are going to be radically maladapted to the larger society that we're forced to be involved with. That's quite likely. I mean, with a certain amount of strategic thinking and a focus on optimistic, courageous autonomy, it may not be as bad as we might think, but a posture of being very conscious about how the fundamental values are at cross purposes now with our fundamental values, to be completely aware of that. It's probably going to be very important. And because that's important, and because it's going to be difficult to navigate that as a lone wolf, anything that can be done to build community with other individuals who have walked the same path and have done so in a constructive manner, well, this is useful. And it is good to reach out and to make an attempt to build connections with those brothers and sisters of yours who do share similar values. That will be important because the forces of the largest society will be so immense. It'll take everything you can possibly muster to remain confident in opposition to what we're very likely to face. But I think for any of us to spend the time to reflect on what any of this means, practically speaking, rather than abstractly, it is quite likely that many of the attributes of existence that have hitherto been important to us in the context of industrial civilization, precisely the skills of being abstract and sociopathic and comfortable with exploitation, destruction, and the rest, to heavily disregard the intuitive for the purely conceptual and the cognitive, those skills that were important to getting us as human civilization exists to this current moment, those skills, those may become precisely the least relevant skills you might have. It may, in fact, be that being a healthy biologic organism with a strong physicality and the ability to interrelate between your peers and the natural world in a complementary manner, understanding the kindred nature of that relating, to viscerally and in a very first person manner live as one who experiences rather than contemplates. It may be that that's all that's left for us to do. And since we come from a culture that hasn't really encouraged that for most of us, developing the skill set and the ability to do so might really be well worth part of your 3-year plan. Fortunately, the environment that you will be adopting as a budding seafarer is exactly the environment that will force you to do so, to live with your eyes turned outward rather than inward, and to have ears that listen rather than to try to close things out, hunger to discover what is true even if wrong, rather than to have comfort in feeling right. It may be that if you really focus on those things, the problem becomes the solution. You will find alienation, no doubt, in the attempt to become that real version of yourself. But it may be that that's the only path forward that we have, and any other path would into something that would personally resemble destruction. Anyway, something to chew on. Encourage you to take it seriously. Cheers.